Hey babies, welcome back to another Modern League. This week, we're playing some 8-rack in Modern. The deck list we're playing with is on screen now and in the description below. It looks pretty similar to 8-rack lists like we've seen in the past. There haven't been that many changes, but with Modern Horizons 2, there have been some pretty important new cards that came out. So let's get into the deck tech. Starting off with our namesake card in primary win condition, we have 4 copies of the Rack and 2 copies of Shrieking Affliction. They are both 1-drops that reward us for emptying our opponent's hand by dealing repeating damage to them. They're pretty much the same most of the time. The Rack is a little bit better when our opponent has 2 cards in hand because it still deals a damage to them. Shrieking Affliction is a little bit better if they have 1 card in hand because it still deals 3 damage to them, and they both deal 3 if our opponent doesn't have any cards in hand, so they're the same in that way. The Rack is also a little bit better because it plays into some artifact synergies we have in the deck. And let's get into our discard. Starting off our discard suite, we have 4 copies of Inquisition of Kozilek. Inquisition has always been pretty good in Modern, but it's even better now with the emergence of the Luris decks, playing everything CMC 2 or less. We have 4 copies of Raven's Crime, which isn't targeted discard, and that is a downside, but it has the upside of turning all the extra lands that we draw into more discard spells. And we have 3 copies of Thoughtseize. Thoughtseize is our most universal discard spell that we can target our opponent with and choose something. But it has the downside of losing us 2 life. We don't have ways to gain more life, and we have other things that pain us, so we don't want too much of that effect. We have 1 copy of Funeral Charm, which can do a few things for us. It's instant speed discard, so we can be cheeky and hit our opponent during their draw step. It can kill 1 toughness creatures, namely Ragavan, and technically it can give something Swamp Walk, although that hasn't been useful to me yet. We have 4 copies of Smallpox, which is discard, removal, and land destruction all rolled into 1. And we have 3 copies of Wrenchmind, which is a way for us to get ahead on cards by getting 2 cards out of our opponent's hand for just 1 of ours. And what's an 8-rack deck without 4 copies of Lily of the Veil for repeated discard and board control? For removal, we have 3 copies of Fatal Push and 2 copies of Bloodchief's Thirst. And for our dorky artifacts, we have 1 copy of Nile Spellbomb and 1 copy of Pithing Needle. Starting off our mana base, we have our biggest change from Modern Horizons 2, where this deck used to play 4 copies of Mutavault. We have 4 copies of Urza's Saga and 2 Mishra's Factories. Urza's Saga is just one of the better cards in the format right now. In our deck, it generates tokens, it can get additional copies of the Rack, and it can get toolbox artifacts for us. And Mishra's Factory is just a little bit better than Mutavault most of the time. It works with our artifact synergies for our other constructs, and it can also be a 3/3 when it blocks. We have 4 copies of Urborg to help our colorless lands tap for black mana, and because legendary lands aren't as much of a drawback for us since we can pitch additional ones to Raven's Crime. We have 2 copies of Silent Clearing as a way to activate Revolt or to just draw an extra card if we're getting flooded. And we have 1 copy of Castle Locthwain as a way to get some more card advantage once we're both relatively empty-handed. And finally, we have 11 basic swamps. In our sideboard, we have 2 copies of Nile Spellbomb for graveyard decks, 1 copy of Fatal Push for additional removal, and 1 Pithing Needle for problematic activated abilities. We have 4 copies of Break the Ice, mostly to blow up Urza's Sagas, but also because Tron's a Nightmare matchup. We have 2 copies of Douthie Voidwalker, which is good graveyard hate and is also good repeated damage, which our opponent is probably going to have a hard time interacting with. And we have 2 Void Mirrors for anything like a Cascade deck, maybe Affinity, maybe more Tron hate. Anything that Void Mirror is good against, which is plenty of things. We have 2 copies of Bantu's Last Reckoning for creature decks, and 1 copy of Necromentia for combo and control decks. So what'd you think of the list? I think it's pretty solid. I'm not very good at playing 8-rack, so I'm not sure what to expect out of this league, but we'll see. Alright, round 1 of 8-rack in Modern. We won the die roll, and we will take the play. Double Rack, Wrenchmind, Raven's Crime, Lily. This seems like a classic 8-rack hand. Our opponent is not playing a companion. We'll keep this. Opponent mulligans to 6. Always nice to see with this deck. Probably just going to start out with a blind Raven's Crime. Could be bad if they're playing Dredge, but we'll see. Gotta run the risk, I suppose. Goblin Bombardment, so it looks like a sacrifice deck. They play a Plains, interesting. Opponent Griefs. Looks like they're gonna ephemerate us. I'll be very sad, but it is what it is, I guess. If our opponent Griefs and they don't take Wrenchmind, okay, yeah. So it looks like they're playing a Mardu. They're playing some odd cards. They're going to get our Lily, but we're going to get a rack down at least. I don't want to leave ourselves open to a Thoughtseize in case they're playing those as well. Goblin Bombardment I usually just see in the Jund Sack deck, so I'm kind of interested to see what our opponent's doing. Our hand's basically empty. Our opponent kind of did the thing we wanted to do to them, unfortunately for us. Let's Inquisition them. We get a Lingering Souls. I think I'm gonna cry. Pass the turn. Okay. I possibly should have flashback Raven's Crime there, but I would like to have 3 lands in case we draw Lily, I think. Why is it using the colorless spirit tokens? Moto's so weird. Alright. We draw an Inquisition. Fire off an Inquisition again, we get Seasoned Pyromancer. Opponent has 1 card in hand, pass the turn. Opponent takes 2. Yep. Our clock is very modest right now, unfortunately. And Grief is kind of a pain because it's hard for us to kill it without activating more things. Let's see, do I want to just make them sacrifice a creature? Probably. It gets a 1/1, but that gets us a bit closer to clearing the board at least. It's probably better than just making them discard a card. Play another Lily. I think this time I'm going to plus it because they can't deal 4 damage unless they attack with everything. And that gets us back to being able to deal some damage with the rack. Opponent attacks Lily with both, okay. I'm pretty sure they're just going to win the race because we're not being able to... We don't have a way to get Grief off the board currently. And we're not particularly close to killing them with rack. Grief Ephemerate really busted. What else can I say? What did they exile with the Grief? They exiled a Stitcher's Supplier. Yeah, so they're playing something weird. For sure. We draw Fatal Push. Hilarious. I'm gonna leave it in hand just in case we draw a way to... Well, even if we draw a way to activate it to kill Grief, it's not gonna matter unless we... I guess we gotta just kill the Spirit. Because even if we kill Grief next turn, we'll be at 1. Shrieking Affliction, that doesn't do it. Alright. I wish I saw a bit more of what our opponent's playing. Them playing Lingering Souls and also Seasoned Pyromancer kind of makes me feel like it's just going to be a bad matchup. But I have hope, I guess. Let's bring in Nile Spellbombs. And Douthie Voidwalkers. I think those both seem good. I'm not sold on Bantu's. Fatal Push might be good, but they play a bunch of tokens. I wonder if this is just the new version of like the Mardu Pyromancer deck from a couple years ago that we're running into now. Necromentia could be good as a way to get rid of Lingering Souls, but it's probably not necessary. Voidmere, I guess Voidmere could get their Grief activations and also get Ephemerate Rebound, but the issue is that Voidmere comes down the turn after they can already do that. So it doesn't seem like the best idea. Smallpox doesn't seem great since they have all these token generators. It seems like they can probably take advantage of it better than we do. I might want Bantus, I think. At least one of them. Funeral Charm can probably go. We didn't... Well, actually, we did see the Goblin Bombardment, so Pithing Needle probably stays, at least one of them. Maybe I bring in both the Bantus since they play a bunch of creatures, a bunch of tokens specifically. And then I cut like one of the Blood Chief's Thirsts. That doesn't seem bad.
Let's try it like that. I don't want to take away too much from what our deck is trying to do, and I think it would be a little bit of overkill to bring in the Void Mirrors. We'll see. One land, it enters tapped. I think we have to mulligan this. We did get 2 lands at least this time. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's keep. Our opponent's keeping 7, unfortunately. I think I'd rather have double Thoughtseize than the Fatal Push, since we have Wrenchmind and a Rack already. Let's lead on Swamp Thoughtseize you. Hopefully stop them from... Oh, I need to play a Swamp. Hopefully stop them from Grief Ephemerating. Unearth, Citrus Supplier, Pithing Needle, Engineered Explosives. What in the hell? Alright, so Wrenchmind isn't the best if they're going to be playing out all these dorks. Pithing Needle's probably going to turn off our Liliana of the Veil. And Engineered Explosives can get our Rack. But if I get Citrus Supplier, it sort of... Well, their Unearth can still get their Supplier back, so it's not the best. I think I take Needle here, maybe Unearth. I'm leaning Needle, I'm going to get that. Since we don't really have a way to get it off the board once it's stuck. I'm probably going to Thoughtseize them rather than playing Wrenchmind here, because I assume they're going to lead on Citrus Supplier, and I would like to be able to get 2 cards with our Wrenchmind. So I have to get rid of the other artifact in their hand. If they run out EE on 1, I'm just going to Wrenchmind them and hope that they didn't draw another artifact. But we'll see. Whatever our opponent's doing does seem pretty sweet. I'm not going to lie. Citrus Supplier in a deck with Lingering Souls seems pretty cool. And also then you can like unearth a Seasoned Pyromancer that you milled or something like that. Seems pretty good. Opponent plays Arid Mesa, fetches, gets a Blood Crypt, shocks it to 17. Plays Citrus Supplier, okay. Milling, Goblin Bombardment, and a couple lands, that's fine. We draw Bantu's Last Reckoning. Let's Thoughtseize you. Get rid of EE, our opponent has Unearth and a bunch of lands. We will play Rack. Pass the turn. Planning to Wrenchmind our opponent this coming turn. But we'll see what happens. Hopefully we can start getting our damage on with Rack soon. Opponent plays a tapped land, hits us for 1. That's fine. We draw Nile Spellbomb. I think I want to get the Nile Spellbomb in play before anything, in case they discard something that's relevant in the graveyard. Nile Spellbomb sort of turns off their Unearth, so it might encourage them to discard that, and that would be nice. You draw Raven's Crime, okay. Let's Wrenchmind you. I assume they're going to discard a couple lands. I want to play a third land drop so we can Bantus eventually, but I think Raven's Crime is going to be nice after that as a way to ditch extra lands. Pretty much after you hit a couple black sources, you want to just discard any other basic swamps or Urborgs and keep your man lands and Urza's Sagas, since those are a bit better, generally. Of course, it depends on what's going on in game, and it can change a little bit, but... Okay, they discard Mountain and Unearth. They have 2 cards in hand. Opponent takes 1. Down to 16. We are pecking away at each other very slowly. Looks like our opponent's playing... Okay, they play Leyline of Sanctity. That's kind of a pain in the ass. They are down to 1 card now, though. So that's nice, at least. We can't target them with Nile Spellbomb, so that kind of sucks. And Leyline is just going to stick around. So... I think Nile Spellbomb target me, draw a card. Because I don't want to get rid of the Raven's Crime necessarily. Well, the Raven's Crime's not going to do anything, but I'd rather draw a card now and see if I get another Rack or a Shrieking Affliction maybe. Or an Urza Saga would also be nice. Or, while our opponent is sort of low on resources. I haven't seen a Leyline of Sanctity in Modern in a while, honestly. A lot of white decks seem to be playing... Seem to be playing Luris and just won't have it in the sideboard. Or playing Yorion and aren't going to be able to find it consistently enough that they find that it's worth playing. Also, a lot of those Yorion decks are just pretty decent against Burn and whatever else by themselves, since they draw a lot of cards and gain a lot of life just incidentally. Alright, if our opponent would hit 8 or something and yield to me activating Nile Spellbomb so I can draw a card, that would be great. We have a bit of a faster clock against our opponent than they have against us currently, since we're dealing 2 damage this turn and they're going to deal 1. But I'd like to speed it up if I can. We got another Nile Spellbomb, that's a little lame. I'll go ahead and play that. Play the Swamp. Pass. I'm just going to activate this and exile my graveyard again. And draw a card at the end of their turn. Hopefully the Leyline doesn't just steal the game from us. That'd be sad. Opponent hits us for 1, we go to 12, we Nile Spellbomb ourselves, pay a black, draw a card, we draw Lily. Ooh, that gets around Leyline. Liliana of the Veil. Yeah, I'm not playing Delirium Skeins on the sideboard because I pretty much just didn't expect to see Leyline of Sanctity. So, whoops. But at least Lily is a way to make our opponent discard still. Good thing I got rid of that needle earlier. And I'm just going to discard Thoughtseize, I think. Maybe Raven's Crime, but they're pretty much the same at this point. Discard Raven's Crime. Our opponent discards a card. So we're going to be able to keep hitting them for 2. If they extend on their board more, I'm going to Bantu's Last Reckoning their stuff away so that I can keep Lily around and keep myself around. I think we're in a good spot right now, between having Lily and her Rack on board. Let's see what our opponent discards. Opponent discards a Bloodstained Mire. Okay, so they're sandbagging lands in their hand to try to keep alive versus rack damage. 12 all, our opponent plays a land out. Fetches, interesting. Let's see what our opponent has to play. Hopefully not a way to kill our permanents, but we'll see. Opponent plays Cling to Dust to draw a card, okay. So that's a way that they can get recurring card draw, which is a little unfortunate for us. But we do get to keep hitting them with Lily at least, and they're not going to be able to gain any life with Cling to Dust. Each player discards. They can use this a couple more times since they have enough cards in their graveyard to escape. I like Cling to Dust a lot. The card's very sweet. Very, very good. Not like busted good, but it's a much better version of like Cremate, which is nice to see. I think I just keep the Swamp in my hand. So in case we draw an Urza Saga, I can play that, and I don't have to discard Bantus to Lily. Opponent discards Kroxa, that's spooky. We do get to Bantus away the Kroxa, and they don't know about Bantus, so that's nice. Opponent takes 2 down to 7. If they get Kroxa back, we're going to discard Swamp, which is another good reason to have kept Swamp in hand, I suppose. And it's a little bit hard for them to get Kroxa back, but us Bantusing is going to let them get a Citrus Supplier trigger, which gets them closer to Kroxa again. I think they can actually just Kroxa twice in a row, and that kind of sucks. And we can't Edict them with Lily, so we do need more removal, I think. At least the way that's looking right now. Discard a Swamp. Yup. Yeah, if we draw like a Fatal Push, I'd be happy with that, because then we can push Kroxa. We draw Raven's Crime, that sucks. Each player discards. We discard Raven's Crime. Okay. We are right down to the wire right now. I think Lily's ult targets too, doesn't it? Yeah, it does. Oh my god, that sucks. Alright. So we get to Wrath. They're gonna... they got a Lingering Souls too. They can get Kroxa back, but we're not going to be able to untap our lands. So I think now we're just screwed. Because I think Kroxa is guaranteed to connect at least once. I guess we'll see. Maybe our opponent will do something weird like playing a land and fetching to lower their life total a little bit more. But Kroxa's lined up to deal a lot of damage to us. So basically our opponent just has to punt, I think. Yeah, because we can draw Swamp and play it, but then we don't have a kill spell. We can draw a kill spell and play it. Or we can draw a kill spell, but we can't cast it. So our opponent has to like play a land and fetch and shock or something and just die. Which is a little unfortunate. Yep, opponent. Well, opponent Prismatic Endings are Lily instead of getting Kroxa back. If opponent plays... Huh. So they did punt a little bit. I wonder if we're going to be able to take advantage of it. They're probably going to get Kroxa back here, I assume. So we're going to discard the Shrieking Affliction. If we draw another Bantus, we might be in a good spot. Opponent has 2 cards in hand. We draw Wrenchmind. We draw Wrenchmind! Oh my god, our opponent punted it! Oh, I can't target it. Oh my god. That was such a close game. Alright, I'm just going to wrench mine myself. And concede. GG's to our opponent. Got a little overexcited about that wrench mine when I forgot about the Leyline of Sanctity, but that was a really fun match. Alright, I'll see you in the next one. Alright, round 2 with Modern 8-Rack. We got the die roll again. I know some 8-Rack players generally will take the draw, but I think Modern's a little bit too fast to be doing shenanigans like that anymore. Our opponent's playing a Lurrus deck. We would like to have one more land so we can play our Lilianas, but other than that, our hand's pretty good. We even have some graveyard interaction. Let's keep. Yeah, I mean, we even saw that last game where, like, if you have the chance, you should probably just be on the play, especially if you're playing a discard deck. Because your opponent could just, like, Grief Ephemerate you and blow you out or something like that. Okay, Ragavan, Mishra's Bauble, Lightning Bolt, K-Command. Let's take Ragavan. Opponent plays Mishra's Bauble. Cracks it targeting themselves. Deciding whether they want to draw that card or if they want to fetch it away. Opponent plays Polluted Delta. And passes. They draw a card with Mishra's Bauble. We draw another Lily, which really fucking sucks. Now Spellbomb. The Rack. Hopefully drawing a land so we can do something with these three drops that we have stuck in our hand now. We'll see, I guess. Our opponent can use K-Command to get rid of our Rack, but we're not entirely worried about that, I don't think. We can at least stop them from getting back Bauble or Ragavan with Nile Spellbomb, so that's kind of nice. Opponent has Dragon Rage Channeler. Okay. Does not crack Polluted Delta and does not surveil at all. We draw Raven's Crime. Let's Raven's Crime you. Make our opponent discard a card. They discard Lightning Bolt. Makes sense. Do I just pop Nile Spellbomb now to see if I draw a land? I'm going to do it this turn, and I don't want to give them the option to K-Command back their Ragavan in response, because I really want to draw a land for Lily. So I'm going to do that. It gets them a bit further from Delirium, but that's not the main thing I'm trying to do here. I draw an Inquisition. That kind of sucks. Inquisition at least can force them to use K-Command or discard it, I guess. But we have nearly all of the 3-drops in our deck stuck in our hand right now. We only play 4 of them, and they're all Lily of the Veil. Okay, we draw Swamp. Thank God. Play Swamp. Do I want an Inquisition or do I want to Lily? I think I want an Inquisition. Hopefully they only have the one K-Command. They're probably going to pop it off here to like make us discard a card and blow up our Rack, I assume. But if I Lilied and made them sack, they could K-Command to shock Lily and get back their DRC, and that's just not very good. And if I Lily plus, I'm still pretty close to having Lily on a die. If they shock it and like get DRC online this coming turn. Alright, that's what I figured. Opponent surveils. We will discard one of our several Liliana of the Veils. Opponent discards Dress Down. Or opponent surveils away Dress Down, rather. Inquisition gets either Drown in the Loch or Death Shadow. Our opponent doesn't have a Shockland or a Fetch land in hand, so I'm kind of leaning towards Drown in the Loch, because we might just be able to incidentally stop them from playing Death Shadow, and that would be cool. And we can also just make them sacrifice 2 things in a row. Worst case scenario, I think. So Swamp, Death Shadow is what's in our opponent's hand right now. They're probably going to put Lurrus into their hand this turn. Opponent plays their Swamp. They did not draw a Shockland, and they're not putting Lurrus into hand either. Interesting. We draw Mishra's Factory. Do I want to leave the Mishra's Factory so I can Raven's Crime? I think I want to play it, because I'm probably going to draw a card with Silent Clearing in a little bit, and I don't want to take extra damage here. Play Lily of the Veil. Opponent drew a Drown in the Loch. Fuck me. Thoughtseize Bug. Opponent always draws what you Thoughtseize an Inquisition. So sad. Alright. Opponent hits us for 3 since they have Delirium now. Our opponent puts Lurrus into hand. They have 3 cards in hand. We draw Swamp. Okay. So, oh my god. Didn't mean to do that. 1, 2, 3. I'm going to pretend like it did and pop Silent Clearing, play Lily of the Veil. Get rid of DRC. Pass the turn. So there's 1 unknown, a Death Shadow, and a Lurrus in our opponent's hand. Lurrus is very scary because it can just get back DRC. Opponent has a Ragavan to kill our Lily with. Things are not going our way anymore. We don't have any 0-drops to draw with Silent Clearing, so we might as well wait on that. At least our opponent doesn't get a treasure there. Opponent plays Death Shadow, it dies. Don't know why they did that. We will draw a card with Silent Clearing. So opponent has Ragavan, Lurrus, 1 unknown. They're about to be down a Lurrus because we just drew Inquisition. Lurrus, Death Shadow, Ragavan. We will take the Lurrus. Bloodchief's Thirst can deal with Ragavan if they just play it out, and it can deal with Death Shadow if they actually draw a way to pump it up. If they... Okay, so they did draw a way to make their Death Shadow resolve. If they dash in Ragavan and forget about Mishra's Factory, we can block with Factory and make it a 3/3 so it doesn't die. Looks like they're dashing Ragavan. That would be fantastic. Hell yeah, our opponent is misplaying. That helps us out a lot. Like, we know that the other card in your hand is a Death Shadow. And Factory pumps itself. Because it's just a little bit better than Mutavault in that one way. It doesn't get all the tribal synergies, and it does get destroyed by artifact destruction, but a little bit better. Alright, I think we're just going to have to start attacking with Mishra's Factory. Because we need to try to close out this game as quickly as we can. I'm going to leave Urborg in my hand so that I can Raven's Crime them if they sandbag a card in their hand and play around counter spells in that way. And hopefully I just draw some Rax or an Urza's Saga at some point soon, so I can actually close out the game. No reason to not attack them out of fear of Death Shadow, just because we're already pretty screwed if they play another one anyway. Opponent plays a DRC, we're not particularly happy about that. We draw Urza Saga. We are particularly happy about that, though. That can get us a rack, and it can also make a couple boys over the course of a couple turns, of course. Hopefully our opponent draws a land or something for a couple turns. That would be great. Opponent gets in for 3. Which is going to clear the way for us to attack with Mishra's Factory again, most likely. We draw Raven's Crime. Okay. Let's Raven's Crime you the natural way. Opponent discards. What do they discard? They discard Unholy Heat. Cool. We will attack you with a Mishra's Factory, and then play out Urborg so we have a way to activate Urza Saga. And if our opponent blanks on a draw again, the rack plus our boys should be able to just close out the game since our opponent's forced to attack. And we are also pretty favored, I think, at this point, otherwise. If our opponent hadn't thrown away a Death Shadow and misplayed pretty heavily with Ragavan there, I'm pretty sure we wouldn't be in the position we are now. But I'm not going to complain about it. You gotta take what you can get. Alright, make another boy. Drawing Urborg means we can Raven's Crime the last card out of our opponent's hand. We get a rack. Oh my god. Oh my god, I suck so bad. I keep clicking that like it's a thing to cast. Ah! Alright. Activate Mishra's Factory. Go to combat. They still need 2 kill spells, I think, to... out of the 1 card. Okay, thank god. So I could have played a bit better there, too, if I had clicked Raven's Crime instead of clicking the Urborg in my hand, but... oh well. Still worked out. We bring in 2 more Nile Spell Bombs. We bring in 2 Dauthi Voidwalkers. We bring in another Fatal Push. What do I want to cut? Wrenchmind seems good, Smallpox seems fine. Funeral Charm can kill Ragavan, so I guess it's fine. Bloodchief's Thirst seems fine. All the removal seems pretty okay, honestly. Needle can probably go. Maybe I go down Shrieking Afflictions. It's so hard to sideboard with this deck for me. Because it feels like so many things you want to keep. I think I go down to Thoughtseize since our Inquisition's already hit everything. Well, hold on. Let's go down to Raven's Crime. I like Funeral Charm, I'm going to keep it. Go down another Raven's Crime. Go down 1 Shrieking Affliction. Do I want to go down Thoughtseize? I think I'm just gonna go down both the Shrieking Afflictions. They're probably gonna bring in Engineered Explosives, which could make us feel silly for taking out Pithing Needle. But I think it's still probably worth it. I think Voidwalker is going to be enough of a... yeah, Voidwalker being a 3 damage a turn threat makes up for Shrieking Affliction. I assume they're going to take out most of their removal. They'll have K-Command to deal with Dauthi Voidwalker, but we don't really have enough creatures other than like man lands for them to justify it, I don't think. Maybe I don't want all those Thoughtseizes since they're extra damage on us. And I play 3 Raven's Crimes instead. Let's try it like that. It's a little bit weird, but I think the Nile Spell Bombs and the Voidwalkers' Graveyard Hate are going to be decent enough with a little bit of extra spot removal. Only 1 land, but we are up by a game and we have a lot of action. Am I feeling greedy enough? I'm feeling greedy enough. We got 23 other lands in our deck, so it's not impossible for us to draw one over the course of the 2 draws that we have. We get to lead on Inquisition or Thoughtseize, depending, or possibly a kill spell. Opponent shocks in a Watery Grave and passes. We will swamp, ink. We did not draw a land, but we drew another 1-drop, so that's at least something. Our opponent spell pierces our Inquisition. Honestly, that's fine. There's a decent chance we would have taken the spell pierce anyway. So, like, I'm not all that worried about that. I'd like to actually look at their hand before I slam Douthie Voidwalker, though. Our opponent Inquisitions us. They have lots and lots of choices. I think it's probably going to be one of these 3 cards. Out of the Rack, Fatal Push, and Voidwalker. Voidwalker, if they take Voidwalker, it means they probably don't have any removal in their hand, but we only have 1 more Voidwalker in our deck, so it's not going to matter that much at that point. And the other ones mean they probably do have removal, so I'm going to want to Inquisition or Thoughtseize them first. If they take Fatal Push, it means that they don't have many threats, most likely. They take the Rack. Interesting. We draw a land. Bloodchief's Thirst. That's not a land. Inquisition you. You gonna spell pierce it again? Looks like it. Hilarious. Okay. I mean, I'm still kind of fine with that. It's better than them spell piercing like a Liliana or something, because that's more of a blowout. Our opponent plays Expressive Iteration. That's card advantage for them, which is bad for us. And I still want to take a peek at their hand before I Voidwalker. Opponent plays a Scalding Tarn off of their Iteration. Fetches. I assume they're going to play a creature here. If it's a Ragavan, I'm going to Funeral Charm it. If it's pretty much anything else, I think I'm just going to Fatal Push it. Or Bloodchief. I'll probably Bloodchief's Thirst instead, actually. Since it's sorcery speed upon reconsideration. Well, they know about the Fatal Push and not this. I don't know. We'll see. Opponent plays Death Shadow. We cannot Funeral Charm that to death. We do draw a Swamp. Let's go Thoughtseize you. Ragavan, Drown in the Lock, Drown in the Lock. I think I'd take Drown in the Lock, since I have multiple Ragavan answers. Well, I don't know. Okay. So they're going to be able to put Lurrus in their hand eventually. They haven't done it yet, so they're 6 mana away from having Lurrus actually on board. I think I just take the stupid monkey and... I'm pretty far away from kicking Bloodchief's Thirst, so I think I'm just going to get rid of Death Shadow now. And now our opponent's just stuck with a bunch of answers and a Lurrus that they can eventually put in hand. Opponent passes and leaves up their counterspells. We will play Mishra's Factory. Pass the turn. Not going to let them use their mana if we don't have to let them use their mana. Opponent passes. We draw Raven's Crime. I will Raven's Crime you. Opponent has 2 Drown in the Lock, 2 Unknown. Discards a Kroxa. Oh no. Well, Kroxa's terrifying. Huh. So if they draw another red source, they can Kroxa us. And then we discard, I guess, Funeral Charm, and then we can Fatal Push Kroxa at least. If we draw specifically a black land, we can... Ugh, that's annoying. Discard Funeral Charm. Opponent gets Death Shadow back. Wish we had Voidwalker in play or a Nile Spellbomb. That would be very nice. We do have 3 Nile Spellbombs in our deck now since we sided 2 more in, so hopefully we can find one. Our opponent chooses not to Kroxa us, would rather Death Shadow us. Do I want to Fatal Push their Death Shadow? I think I should. To try to use my mana a bit more efficiently in case I draw something good here. If I draw Nile Spellbomb, I want to be able to go Douthie Voidwalker, let it get countered, and then Nile Spellbomb my opponent. Actually, if I play Douthie first, they're probably just going to wait and kill it later. I don't know. Double casting Graveyard interaction would be... Okay, so our opponent counters this. That works for me. Opponent has 1 card in hand. We draw a Raven's Crime. I think I want to get Voidwalker down. Hopefully our opponent doesn't have more removal for it right now. Our opponent is still able to get Kroxa back. But if we can kill Kroxa, at least Voidwalker makes it harder for them to do it again. And we can just discard Raven's Crime to the Kroxa trigger. Our opponent does not fetch at end of turn. Sort of curious. Opponent plays another land. And attacks for 2. Okay. Fetches with Polluted Delta. Goes down to 8. We are currently taking 5. I wonder if they're going to fetch Shock again. That'd be interesting. They do not. Opponent Kroxas. Alright. We discard Raven's Crime. If we don't draw removal, we're dead. Or at least pretty close to dead. We draw Thoughtseize. So if we Thoughtseize our opponent, what has to happen for us? We have to Thoughtseize our opponent and get like specifically a removal spell that hits Kroxa. But then Douthie Voidwalker doesn't exile the Kroxa. This seems sketchy. We can chump block with Mishra's Factory. If we keep Thoughtseize in our hand, we take 3 less damage to Kroxa. Our opponent goes down to 5. So do I YOLO the Thoughtseize and hope that my opponent has something that fucks themselves up? I think I have to. I think that's better than just sitting on nothing. They probably have like a land in their hand. But we'll see. They have a Drown in the lock. So how much damage are we taking next turn? If our opponent attacks us with both, we take 3 to Kroxa, go down to 8. We can chump block with Mishra's Factory. There's no way that Douthie Voidwalker is blocking. I think we go to combat. So I think we can survive this one turn if our opponent draws trash. And then if we draw a rack, we can win. Or a, yeah. Because we can chump block with Mishra's Factory. Okay. If I chump block the Croxa rather than Death Shadow, our opponent has something to play. They have an Alpine Moon. Yikes. Is it still a creature if I animate it first? Let's see. I think it'll still be a creature. It just loses all its other abilities and land types. Yep, they picked Mishra's Factory. It's still a dude, though. So we can still chump block. We have to block Death Shadow because we're at 8. And if we draw specifically a rack effect, we can win. Alright, fingers crossed. Please be a rack. Please be a rack. Opponent puts Lurrus into their hand. Okay. We draw Inquisition. Inquisition gets their Lurrus, I guess, but... I don't think that does enough. We have a rack that we could get back with Lurrus. Actually... yeah, we don't have any blockers that we can get back with it. We could get rack back. We would have lifelink and a way to chump, but we can't chump enough. We can deal 3 to our opponent. They go to 2. Let's Inquisition you. I think it'd be fun to play the Lurrus, so I'm just going to do that. We're very dead, though, because we're even dead to the Croxa trigger. And now I can play Rack. With the cat. And now I have to pass, unfortunately. Opponent is all the way down to 2, but that's as far as we could get them. Unfortunately, they're not going to like Shock or something, I assume. So we are dead to Croxa trigger and being attacked by 1,000,000 power worth of stuff. Okay. I'm pretty happy with how I sideboarded. I think Voidwalker was correct. I think I want to bring in Necromentia to just get Croxa out of their deck and get rid of Raven's Crime, since they can kind of take advantage of the Raven's Crime that way. And I think I'm just going to try it like that. Yeah, Croxa seems like a very big problem if we don't have Nile Spellbomb or Voidwalker online for most of the game. We'll take the play. Nile Spellbomb, Inquisition, Raven's Crime, Urza's Saga. This seems capable. We're going to lead on Inquisition, hopefully get rid of Alpine Moon if they have it. Hopefully they won't have Alpine Moon and we can get rid of something else. But this way we can go turn 1 Ink, turn 2... play Urza's Saga, play Nile Spellbomb with it, and play Raven's Crime. So our opponent does have Alpine Moon, we're just going to get rid of that. They have Inquisition, Expressive Iteration, Lightning Bolt. So they're going to be able to Inquisition away our Nile Spellbomb. But we can get another one with Urza's Saga if we have to get rid of the Croxa. So let's just get rid of Alpine Moon. They probably only have 2 Alpine Moons in their deck. Maybe 3. But probably only 2, I would assume. People aren't usually running like 4 of them or something. Opponent gets Blood Crypt. Goes to 17. Inquisitions us. takes, I assume, Nile Spellbomb, since discarding Raven's Crime feels a little silly. We're not going to Raven's Crime them because that just lets them turn on their Kroxa earlier, and that would be sad. We draw Wrench Mind. That's kind of nice, actually. Let's play Urza's Saga. Now that I think about it, I am just going to Raven's Crime them. Opponent puts Kroxa into the graveyard. That's fine. Yeah, they have to get significantly more mana before they can actually escape Kroxa. So even if they're going to be able to fill up their graveyard, hopefully we can Nile Spellbomb it away relatively quickly. Opponent plays DRC. Okie dokie. What am I doing? I'm going to pull up the known cards. So, Steam Vents, Polluted Delta, Inquisition, Kroxa. So we know 2 cards in our opponent's hand. They have a Lightning Bolt and an Expressive Iteration. Their DRC is online currently. Do I want to Wrench Mind them? Or do I want to make a Saga token? I probably want to make a Saga token. Yeah. I would rather make a Saga token here. Get a bit more of a board presence. Which probably means they get to play Expressive Iteration or Lightning Bolt here, but not really the end of the world. They ditch Inquisition, that's fine. So I assume I'm going to get Nile Spellbomb with Saga. I'm going to be able to play a Swamp, so I can draw a card when I activate it. I'm definitely activating it so that I stop this Kroxa from happening and also turn off their DRC. They get a Bloodstained Mire. Okay. So they're going to be able to bolt our Urza Saga too, or our Construct token rather, if they want to. Which, it uses a card in their hand. I'm not really that upset about it, especially if it's just going to be a 1-1 or a 2-2 for the majority of the game. We draw Castle Lochthwain. That's not the worst. Get Nile Spellbomb. Kroxa's spooky, and I don't want it. Let's play our Castle Lochthwain. Let's go to combat. See if our opponent wants to bolt us, or bolt our construct rather, before damage. I'd like to be able to get their Lurrus with our Wrench Mind, if they line that up for us in some way. Yep, they bolt the construct, that's fine. They're going to Surveil. This means that we get the bolt and also what they surveilled exiled as well, and that's nice. We draw a card with Spellbomb, double Wrench Mind. Ooh. Alright, the construct is tiny and probably about to die either to blocking DRC or to just a regular removal spell, but double Wrench Mind means we can get our opponent empty-handed. And then we can just start trying to pull ahead with Castle Lochthwain. Doesn't seem like the worst plan ever. If our opponent doesn't develop their board anymore this turn, we're in great shape. I really hope that they put Lurrus into their hand this turn. Yeah, if they play land, crack it, put Lurrus into hand, I'm so happy. Please, damn. We draw Liliana of the Veil. Let's Wrench Mind them, since it gets them empty-handed. Lily's good enough that I don't want to just run it out. And next turn I might be able to go Liliana plus Raven's Crime to keep them empty-handed. Opponent drown the locks. They're drowning the locking to protect one card. I'm going to Raven's Crime them. to get the last card out of their hand. There's a Bloodstained Mire. Okay, opponent's empty-handed. If I draw land, I can Raven's Crime them again. They can put a Lurrus into their hand, and they have the one draw for turn. Looks like they have an Expressive Iteration. Might be a Ragavan, though. If they dash Ragavan, I can also make them discard it, and that's kind of nice. Opponent hits us for 1, that's okay. Opponent plays Ragavan, okay. Do you put Lurrus into hand? They do not. Okay, Lily's in danger if we play it. We draw Necromentia, that's kind of nice. So do I want to Lily just to get rid of DRC / Ragavan? It doesn't feel right. Do I want to Necromentia away the Croxos? Or do I want to draw a card with Lochthwain? Choices, choices. Lily impacts the board. I think we need to impact the board sooner rather than later. Wrenchmind obviously doesn't do anything, so it's not part of the equation here. Drawing a card with Castle Lochthwain costs us 4 life, which is kind of ridiculous. If I Lily plus, they can't quite kill it unless they activate DRC. And then we at least have Lily still on board, but it's not going to be able to make them discard. I think I need to Necromentia. I'm going to check and see. They probably have another Croxa in their deck, but probably just one of them. We could also get Drown in the Loch. How many of those do they have left? They have all their Drown in the Loch still in their deck. They already have an instant in their graveyard, though. We'll get to look at their deck. I don't think they're going to have a set of Croxa, so I don't think I'm going to go after Croxa. I think I'd rather hit... I think I'd rather hit Drown in the Loch here. They have one more Croxa in their deck, so I was right about that. They have 4 Death Shadows, they have 3 more DRCs, they have 3 more Ragavans, that all makes sense. They have 3 Spell Pierces, 3 K Commands, 2 Dress Downs, and 3 Mishra's Baubles. And 1 Unholy Heat. So Unholy Heat and the K Commands are their only creature removal. Okay. Yeah, I think I want to wait on Lily until I hopefully get like a Fatal Push in my hand so I can protect it for a turn. Because I'd like to get at least 2 activations out of Liliana. Opponent hits us for 3, gets a treasure. That's fine. Opponent is close to being able to play Lurrus in 1 turn, which is kind of spooky. Opponent plays Mishra's Bauble, gets to Surveil. Keeps the card on top of their deck. That's also spooky. Might mean that that's a Croxa. Okay, we did draw Fatal Push. That's great. So, Fatal Push. Cast. Get rid of you. That is exactly what I wanted to draw there. Liliana. Edict you. I doubt that the card they kept was K Command since it wasn't specifically good in that scenario when they surveilled. I think it's probably a creature. In which case we will still need to draw more to keep Lily alive, but we'll see. They might have also kept a land on top so they could go Lurrus, put in hand, cast Lurrus. Okay, they kept DRC, that's what it was. And Ragavan, good lord. Okay, so they have the exact same board as they did earlier now, and now we're sad. We do get to Nile Spellbomb and exile their graveyard and draw a card to shrink DRC. So that's nice at least. Hopefully we draw some removal here. We draw an Urborg, that's not removal. I feel cheated. No reason to get Raven's Crime back. Let's play Urborg. Let's plus Lily so they have to attack it with Ragavan to kill it. Pass the turn. Now our hand is empty-handed so we can castle Lockthwain a bit more safely too. But we're not in a great spot because they can play Lurrus this turn if they want to. They can aggro our Lily down to 1 or kill it, depending. This is a very interesting matchup, I'm not gonna lie. Alright, our opponent attacks us. Huh. No love for Lily of the Veil. We go to 9. Opponent gets a monkey trigger. Has 1 card in hand. They get a Smallpox. If you want to cast Smallpox, I'm okay with it. Opponent does not put Lurrus under their hand and passes the turn. Interesting. What does that mean about their last card, I wonder? Opponent has a K command. They're going to shock Lily, make us discard our card for turn. Yeah. That's stinky. I think I want to draw a card with Lockthwain in response. Because I might want to keep Voidwalker. We draw a Rack. That might change things. I might want to keep the Rack, actually. We're at 7. We're taking 3 a turn. If we draw Bantus and our opponent overextends, we have a chance. I think that's the line. Did I bring in Bantus? I don't remember. Hold on. I didn't bring in Bantus. Well, we're not going to draw Bantus. Fuck. But our opponent's at 9. We're at 4. Maybe we can draw appropriate removal. Opponent's putting Lurrus into hand, probably also casting Lurrus so they can get Mishra's Bauble and draw some extra cards. So the Rack isn't really going to be dealing enough damage to them. What a shame. Yeah, our opponent has lifelink now, has a way to draw extra cards, has a Death Shadow. We're super dead. We don't have Bantus that we sided in. Possible I should have sided in Bantus. Let's draw a card with Lockthwain just to see what happens. Draw Urza Saga and concede. Alright, GG's to our opponent. That was a really fun one. And hopefully the next 3 matches turn around for us.
Alright, round 3 with 8 Rack in Modern. Our opponent won the die roll. We have a Rack, a Thoughtseize, a Smallpox for removal, and a lot of discard and 2 Wrench Mines, as long as our opponent isn't playing a artifact deck. So this hand seems pretty decent. Opponent plays Flooded Strand and cracks it. So we're 0-2 currently, but we are still able to go 3-0 from here. So I have hope. Let's start off with a Thoughtseize. Ooh. Why did they not Force of Negation this? That seems a little odd. Our opponent's playing a Bogles deck. You get to take a core Spirit Dancer. They have Daybreak Coronet, Force of Negation, Rancor, and Staggering Insight left in their hand. Smallpox seems like it's going to be kind of busted against them, along with these Wrench Mines. Let's go Swamp, Wrench Mine. I must have queued into like the only person still playing Bogles, which is fantastic because it's traditionally a very good matchup for 8-rack, so if I can't beat them, I'll be embarrassing myself. Opponent discards double Force of Negation. Yeah, I'm still not quite sure why they didn't counter my Thoughtseize with their Force of Negation pitching Staggering Insight, because it just seems like the correct thing to do. Wrench Mind you. And get a rack into play. Our opponent has 1 card in hand, 3 lands in play. They're leaving their fetch land up for whatever reason. They're not playing Lurrus, which is kind of interesting. I would have expected them to, since it's kind of normal for Bogles decks currently. We get a Liliana of the Veil, we start plussing. I'm going to get rid of Fatal Push, since it's unlikely that we're going to see another core Spirit Dancer, and Lily is removal anyway. They must be playing main deck Leyline of Sanctities, I think, if they're not playing Lurrus. Plus Liliana. Opponent's going to be empty-handed. We pitch a Swamp. Pass the turn. Opponent goes to 12. Opponent has 1 card in hand. They don't play it. We plus Liliana. Pitch Funeral Charm. Actually, I'm going to pitch Inquisition instead. Funeral Charm I can use on their draw step to make sure that they can't get out once we have 1 turn of difference on them. Plus Liliana. Pitch Urborg. Opponent pitches Staggering Insight. Putting a stop on my opponent's draw step. We draw Pithing Needle, no reason to play it. And we cast a Smallpox to deal 1 to our opponent. I'm going to be mean and ult Liliana too, since I haven't had the chance to yet. Alright. And our opponent takes 3. Beautiful. Alright. What do we want to sideboard, if anything? I guess Bontu's is fine. Break the Ice doesn't really make sense. Fatal Push doesn't really make sense. Necromentia could be decent. I think I'm leaning like Bontu's and Necromentia maybe.
We can cut Blood Chief's Thirst. And Pithing Needle I don't think really does anything. So Necromentia can name Leyline of Sanctity in case they sideboard that in, because if it's not in their main deck, it's probably at least in their sideboard. We don't really need to bring in Void Mirror. Pithing Needle doesn't do enough. I think it just names fetch lands. Voidwalker, they don't really care about their graveyard. Break the Ice, it doesn't really do anything. Fatal Push is meh, because it only really gets Core Spirit Dancer and maybe Dryad Arbor. So let's try it like that. We don't have an answer to a resolved Leyline of the Void, which could be a little bit bad. This hand has Urza's Saga, and it has Liliana of the Veil, which is one of the better cards in this matchup, but we can't actually cast the Lily yet because we don't have enough black. And these two cards don't do that much. Opponent's keeping 7. I think I need to mulligan this. I think we want a hand with Smallpox in it. This is very similar. I don't want to keep going down, so I'm going to keep, and I'm going to get rid of Shrieking Affliction, since I have a lot of that effect currently. Actually, I think I'd rather get rid of a Liliana, so that I actually know that I can cast the majority of my hand, in case I don't draw another black source in time. Opponent does not have Leyline, which is interesting, for sure. Plays Temple Garden and shocks it in. Plays Glade Cover Scout. Alright. We drew the second black source, so Liliana's going to be online. Let's Thoughtseize our opponent. Suppression Field, Rancor, Core Spirit Dancer, Curious Obsession. So Suppression Field is annoying. Yeah. They can't play Curious Obsession. I think I take... So, Suppression Field is going to lower our ability to actually activate Urza's Saga and Liliana, so I think I have to take that, but I really want to take Core Spirit Dancer. So it's a little unfortunate. But I think we got to do what we got to do. Opponent plays Curious Obsession. They did not play Spirit Dancer this turn, which is nice for us. So they have a Spirit Dancer and a Temple Garden left in their hand, and they're going to have one unknown after they connect with Curious Obsession. Opponent has 3 cards in hand. We drew another Liliana. I think I would rather play Silent Clearing than Urza's Saga, since I'm planning to play back-to-back Lilianas now. Play Shrieking Affliction. Play the Rack. Hope that we don't suddenly die. Yeah, I think I have to go Lily Edict. Lily dies to combat most likely, and then Lily Edict again. Because they're probably going to play another Core Spirit Dancer, or another creature here in general. Opponent plays their Temple Garden, goes to 15. 3 cards in their hand. Opponent plays Daybreak Coronet instead of playing their creature. Do they have a Slippery Bogle? Damn, they do. Alright, unless we draw Bantus, that kills us, I think. Unfortunately. Because Lily Edict is not enough to keep us alive anymore.
We draw Swamp. Yep, that's not enough. Okay, concede. Do I want to change how I sideboard it at all? Suppression Field could be pretty annoying. I don't really think I want to change anything. So let's just keep it as is. Let's take the play. We have Bantus and Liliana, so I think this is just a keep. We don't have hand interaction for the early game, but I haven't seen any Umbras. Let's just lead on Shrieking Affliction, which is going to take a while before it deals any damage, but at least we're using our mana. And then next turn I have to decide whether I want to play Urza Saga or a Castle Lochthwain, I think. Sort of leaning towards playing Lochthwain earlier so I can get tokens out of Saga later, because I'm not like in a rush to get a rack off of Saga. Opponent plays Bogle. Let's Thoughtseize you. Suppression Field, Rancor, Glade Cover Scout, Force of Negation, Curious Obsession. Let's take Force of Negation. Play Castle Lochthwain. Pass the turn. I don't want them to be able to counter Liliana or Bantus. And they didn't have any lands, so hopefully they didn't draw one to play Suppression Field. Opponent plays a teeny tiny Ethereal Armor. Do they have a land? They do not. Our opponent letting us get rid of the Ethereal Armor is very nice of them, if that is in fact what's happening here. If they drew another Force, I'll be sad. That is kind of just what discard decks like to run into all the time. Play Mishra's Factory. Play Liliana. Please resolve. Yay! Alright, sacrifice your god. Alright, pass the turn. Our opponent has some stuff to still do in their hand. They have another Dork. And we can't Edict it immediately. But it's also not the scariest, and we can possibly block with a 3/3 Mishra's Factory, which does get us out of Rancor Trample range. Opponent drew another Dork. Okay. Let's Inquisition you. Stony Silence, which we don't care about. Rancor, Glade Cover Scout, Suppression Field. I think do I get rid of Suppression Field? Or Glade Cover Scout? Do I care about Suppression Field? We have enough mana that I'm not certain that I care about Suppression Field anymore. I'm leaning towards just getting Rancor or Glade Cover Scout. I think I'd take Rancor. Plus Lily of the Veil. Discard an Urza Saga, which does feel bad, but, you know, here we are. Opponent is choosing a discard. They discard their Stony Silence. We will play an Urza Saga. And pass the turn. I'm going to take the Draw Steps top off, since we just have the one Funeral Charm and we don't have it currently. It's a little bit of overkill.
The reason I took Rancor, by the way, was so we don't have to trade down Mishra's Factory, at least most likely, and we're also encouraging our opponent to play Glade Cover Scout and play into our Bantus. If they attack all willy-nilly, I'm not going to have to Bantus. They do attack, and it is all willy-nilly. I will block. And I will pump my dork. Just in case. Don't want to get gut shotted or something. Bogle down. Opponent has 3 cards in hand. We drew another Lily. So let's Edict you. Pass the turn. Don't need to play out the other Liliana yet. I'd rather get a boy from Urza's Saga. Opponent passes. We make a dork. We untap. We draw a Wrench Mind, which is interesting. I think I'd rather make another dork here, though. We get a rack. We go to combat. Start aggroing our opponent. Hit him for 3. Make it 4. Opponent's to 13. They have 4 cards in hand, so they're not taking damage from either of our rack effects currently. And they've been so stuck on lands that they just have a bunch of cards left in their hand. They finally draw a second land. They could play Suppression Field here, but we're in a position where we're kind of okay with just paying for it, since if they play Suppression Field, we can play Liliana, and then we're not particularly worried about it. I can plus Liliana and get rid of Bantus, since we have board control right now. It's not the most necessary in the world. Opponent plays Suppression Field, that's fine. They have 3 cards in hand. We play Urborg. We Wrench Mind them. They go down to 1 card in hand, and they're about to take a shit ton of damage. I think they're going to be at 1, because they take 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Yeah. And unfortunately, we can't finish them off by just activating Mishra's Factory because of the Suppression Field, but our opponent's going to be at 1 and facing down lethal with only 1 card in hand. So I'm okay with that. Opponent's at 1. 2 cards in hand. What you got? Got a Glade Cover Scout. Okay. Opponent thinks about playing something. And opponent gives us GG's. Well, we actually got there for a match. I'm very satisfied. And let's see if we can keep it up. Alright, round 4 of 8 rack in Modern. We're playing against a Yorion deck. I think I might want to cry. We have 2 Inquisitions, a rack, a Fatal Push, and another rack. I think this hand's fine. We'll see what happens to us. I think Yorion decks, especially the ones that draw a bunch of extra cards, which are most of them, are very, very hard to win against with 8 rack. Just because your opponent can get a card from their sideboard that you can't really interact with in time. And our opponent plays an Esper Sentinel, so they're going to be able to draw extra cards with that. Off of a green-white land. They're going to get to draw an extra card, but I think we got to get rid of this sooner rather than later and try to be more mana efficient. Which sucks for us. But, you know, here we are. Esper Sentinel also seems like a beating with Rack decks. Our opponent plays Boseiju, plays Leon and Arbiter. Okay, so they're on Hatebears. We might actually be able to get there. Let's Inquisition you. Skyclave, Oath of Nissa, Flickerwisp, Batterskull. Let's take Oath of Nissa. Since they're a little low on lands currently, let's Fatal Push your Arbiter. See if our opponent plays anything this turn. If we draw a Wrenchmind, that could incentivize them to get rid of their Batterskull. Opponent plays Thalia, that's a pain in the ass. We draw Smallpox, that's kind of awesome. Let's go tap, tap, tap. Pox. Discard a Rack, unfortunately, but our opponent loses a land and a Thalia, and they're already kind of stuck on lands. Which is sweet. Opponent discarded Batterskull, okay. And they got an Inquisition. They got a Ether Vial, rather. We can empty out their hand. Actually, I think I'm going to play a Rack here instead and get the damage started, since our opponent can't play that Flickerwisp anytime soon anyway. And we might be able to get something decent this next turn with Ink. We draw Urza Saga, we Inquisition you. Noble Hierarch, Flickerwisp. I think I just want to take Noble, play Urza Saga, pass the turn. Our opponent can Flickerwisp like an Urza Saga token to just kill it, but I think I'd rather keep on the mana denial plan. That's probably our best way of winning this matchup. Alright, opponent concedes. Sweet. That went better than I thought it would. Let's bring in a Fatal Push. I think we cut Nile Spellbomb. I think we probably bring in Pithing Needle because Needle hits Ether Vial and also, I assume, Stoneforge since we saw Batterskull and they're playing Hatebears. We bring in Bantus. Probably don't need Void Mirror. Definitely don't need Break the Ice, at least that I know of. Let's go down on a Wrenchmind since they have a decent amount of artifacts. Maybe both the Wrenchminds. I like Funeral Charm since it can be removal. I could see going down on Shrieking Afflictions, maybe. Just try to play it like that. Let's see what happens. Our opponent's on the play, and I'm fine with that. Inquisition, Inquisition, Fatal Push, Raven's Crime. We have some early removal and interaction. I'm not going to complain about it. Let's keep. Having 3 lands in our opener is really nice, because you want at least 3 lands generally. Our opponent plays a damn Esper Sentinel again. Let's pass. I'm probably just going to Fatal Push it, but I want to see if they do anything else. like playing a Stoneforge. I can Thoughtseize whatever they get with Stoneforge, so I'm not that concerned about it, I don't think. They're probably going to get Kaldra, if I assume. Yeah, Kaldra. And they're going to get to draw a card off of me pushing this Esper Sentinel. Unfortunately, but it is what it is. No, I will not pay an extra 1. I don't have an extra 1. Please leave me alone. Alright, Thoughtseize you. So they have Kaldra Complete, which we are definitely taking, and they have 2 Besagus, which is hilarious. And they have a Sanctifier, which we're definitely taking because it has protection from black. So, take Kaldra. Our opponent's going to be able to play both Aether Vial and... Actually, if they don't draw a white source... Sanctifier sucks. So maybe I get greedy here. And take Sentinel instead. Because Sentinel's going to tax everything. Sanctifier I can also technically block with Mishra's Factory, so it might not be the end of the world. Yeah, let's take Sentinel. Alright. Our opponent's stuck with a bunch of green sources in hand. Hopefully they didn't draw white, so I can Inquisition their pro from black creature. They did not. Awesome. They did draw a white source, but not the kind that they're actually looking for. So we get to play Mishra's Factory. We get to Inquisition you. Take Sanctifier. Do I want to block or do I want to just Raven's Crime the ever-loving shit out of them? I think I'm going to double Raven's Crime. Just get them empty-handed so then I can Raven's Crime their Yorion if they put it into hand. Yeah, Raven's Crime turning extra lands in hand into discard spells is very, very nice. Especially since we're playing a bunch of Urborgs. And you don't really want too many of those. Alright, we'd like to draw... Opponent gets Ghost Quarter. They can Ghost Quarter our Mishra's Factory, which kind of sucks for us. They put Yorion into hand, so we're going to be able to get rid of their Yorion. We draw Swamp. Let's Raven's Crime you. Who could have seen this coming? I assume they're going to Ghost Quarter our Mishra's Factory. Which means they're going to be able to keep getting in with Stoneforge. But it also means that the Ghost Quarter is gone in case we draw an Urza Saga. Never mind, our opponent has 2 of them. Which again sucks for us. Alright, I'm going to make them at least do it, I suppose. Go to block. Okay. Pump up Factory. Our opponent lets us kill the thing for some reason. Alright. We have another Mishra's Factory now. Opponent. I'm for sure playing out this other Mishra's Factory so I have a bit more board presence, even though they can Ghost Quarter both of them. Go to combat. I could attack for 3 here, but I'd rather leave up a Mishra's Factory that can block. Yeah, I figured they were going to Ghost Quarter us anyway, so that's fine. Yes. Get a Swamp, thin the deck a little bit, play another Mishra's Factory, pass the turn. Getting rid of their Ghost Quarters also sort of mana screws them a little bit more, but they have Aether Vial and 3 other lands, or 3 other mana sources that they can tap, so it doesn't do that much. Opponent's thinking hard about Aether Vial. Goes up to 3, makes sense. Plays Cave of the Frost Dragon, that's kind of spooky. It's hard for us to interact with unless we draw a Fatal Push. But it takes 5 mana for them to activate it, so they need at least another land. I don't know why I didn't. I don't know why I didn't try to block with Mishra's Factory there, oh well. We draw Raven's Crime, that's not going to do anything. I'll pass. Yeah, I just clicked through our opponent attacking us for 1 without thinking about it. I would like for them to Ghost Quarter our Mishra's Factory to get them further away from activating Frost Dragon. So I didn't think that very clearly through. I assume they're leaving Aether Vial on 3. There's not much of a reason to go up to 4 or further. Okay, opponent did not draw a way to activate Frost Dragon. They're going to let us retry what we attempted to do last turn, but with a little bit less. Okay, opponent Ghost Quarters us, that's fine. Bit further away from activating their man land, so I'm okay with that. We get a swamp. Our deck thins a little bit further. I would love to draw like a Liliana here. Just get them a bit further away from activating their man land. Drawing a Fatal Push would also be okay. I assume they didn't draw a land, they probably drew a creature, and they can probably play it with Aether Vial if they want to. But I think I'm going to force them to with Raven's Crime just to get it out of the way. Opponent plays Thalia, okay. I'd like a Wrath. Smallpox. It's not quite a Wrath, but it's still pretty good. Let's discard Raven's Crime. Our opponent's probably going to sack Noble Hierarch, I assume. And then we get rid of another mana source, so they're very far away from activating Cave of the Frost Dragon. And we still have a 4th land, so we can play Lily and Edict it through Liliana, or through Thalia, I mean. I assume they're just getting rid of a Plains, if I had to guess. We don't have a clock on our opponent at all yet, which is unfortunate. We have 2 Ghost Quarters out of their deck, which is kind of nice at least. Yeah, they got rid of their Plains. They still have their Aether Vial that they can tap. If we draw a Needle, I'd be happy about that, but we need to get rid of Thalia first so I don't just die to it. We draw a Swamp. We'll play one, pass the turn. Hopefully I don't just die to not having removal for Thalia, because that'd be rather sad. Opponent passes. Let's Raven's Crime you. Discard a Swamp, see what you discard. Opponent discards Solitude. We will play a Rack. We have a clock now, we still need to remove Thalia. Our opponent doesn't have any cards in hand, which is great. But we're dying faster to Thalia than they're dying to our Rack currently. Which does suck. Come on, removal. Funeral Charm, beautiful. I guess I wait until their turn to do that. Because I don't... well, they could Flicker Wisp, I guess. Which would be kind of a beating. So I guess I need to stop during my opponent's upkeep. What's our opponent filing in? If anything, Skyclave to kill our Rack. That sucks. Alright, let's kill Thalia. Our opponent still has a clock of 2 on us. We don't have a clock on them anymore. Still hoping to get removal. We need more than just a Fatal Push now, though, because Fatal Push can't hit Skyclave without us activating Revolt one way or another, which we don't have a way of doing currently. Opponent plays Archon of Emeria, that's a pain in the ass. I'd love to draw Bontus here, because we get a 1-1 out of the deal at least, and our opponent doesn't kill us. But if we don't have removal, we're dead this turn. We draw Blood Chief's Thirst. That keeps us alive for at least a turn. Which one would I rather kill? I guess Skyclave I can block if I draw a man land, so I'd rather get rid of Archon of Emeria. You have a couple more answers to Skyclave since it doesn't have flying. Actually, both of our Mishra's factories are in the graveyard, so the difference doesn't matter at that point. Opponent gets the Stoneforge. That's pretty spooky. I'm pretty sure that just makes us dead. Opponent gets a Lion Sash. Okay. So they didn't have a second call draw, which is nice to know at least. We drew Liliana a bit too late, and we concede. Okay. Is there anything I want to change? I think I want... I'm still happy with Needle. Wrenchmind was okay. Do I want Shrieking Affliction back? Since it speeds up our clock a little bit. Voidwalker could be funny if we can make our opponent discard specifically Kaldra into it. Yorion would also be funny, but they have enough cards that they can't sideboard that they still have Solitudes in. I think we just gotta run it back. Alright, fingers crossed. Running it back. Since this is a Yorion deck that doesn't draw a bunch of cards, this is probably the most reasonable kind of Yorion deck for us to actually be able to beat and win a match through. We will take the play. And we'll see what happens. They didn't see Bontus, so they don't know that we have Wraths necessarily. Wow, this hand is awful. We got a mulligan. Alright, this is reasonable. Triple lands, one of them's an Urza's Saga, we have double black. I think we just get rid of a Rack here and keep the Smallpox and Fatal Push for removal. See if our opponent goes turn 1 Esper Sentinel for like the 3rd time in a row. I probably just lead on a Rack, because like they can Skyclave it, but that's kind of late in the game already for them to be doing it. I'd rather be a bit more mana efficient, I think. I could leave up like Fatal Push, I guess. But that's probably not worth it. Opponent mulligans to 5. Ooh. Smallpox might be really busted, actually. Hopefully we draw another land off the top, because I'd like to be able to Smallpox their land and turn 1 Dork away. But our opponent mulliganed a bunch, which helps us out a lot. If they don't play a Dork, I think I just play Urza Saga out, so I can start making boys with it sooner rather than later. Opponent plays Razor Verge, plays Aether Vial. Lame. We draw Fatal Push. Let's Raven's Crime You. Opponent discards a Flicker Wisp. What do I think they're going to do on their turn? Because if I play Saga now, I'm not going to be able to utilize Smallpox to its fullest extent. I think I just play Clearing and pass. This way, if they use their mana to actually cast a creature, I can possibly get rid of it with that. And if they go Dork, I can Fatal Push one of them and Smallpox the other one away, along with their land. Urza Saga might be getting a Pithing Needle to deal with Aether Vial soon. Opponent plays a tapped land. Okay. We drew another Urza Saga. That's kind of nice. Let's play Saga number 1. I don't think I want to pitch a Saga to just Ravenscry our opponent, so I'll pass. I think just having more boys while our opponent already doesn't have many resources would be nice. I'm going to put an instep stop on my turn so I can possibly mitigate what happens here with a Fatal Push. Yeah. Push your Hierarch. Opponent takes 1 to the rack. The clock begins. Opponent has 3 cards in hand. Does not play a land and passes. Okay. Saga ticks up. We draw Thoughtseize, which is interesting. I think I'd rather leave Thoughtseize for... Yeah, I think I'd realistically rather leave Thoughtseize for when we know their Yorion is in their hand. So I think I just pass here. Well, I play Urza Saga and then pass here. Actually... Do I even play Urza Saga? Because that gives us 1 less creature off of it. Yeah, I think I just pass. Because I'm going to activate this Saga on my turn, on their turn, and then activate it on my turn again. Probably getting a Pithing Needle for Aether Vial to get to hopefully mana screw them a bit more. Opponent Aether Vial X2. Could be a Stoneforge. This could be bad. Yeah, it's a Stoneforge. And it is bad. Alright, so opponent's going to be able to put Kaldra into play. We're going to have to race that. We might be able to, honestly, between all the Saga tokens that we can make and being able to Smallpox our opponent at least once. Opponent Kaldras, okay. Hits us for 5, okay. We're going to take 1 more to our Silent Clearing, unfortunately. I'd like to draw an Urborg, would be nice. Let's see what we draw for turn. We draw Pithing Needle. Huh. So since we drew a Pithing Needle, let's make a construct. We go to 13. Opponent activates Aether Vial. Makes sense. Opponent puts a Skyclave into play. We play a Rack. We play a Saga. We Pithing Needle on Aether Vial. We attack for 4. We have to be aggressive to our opponent so that we actually have a chance here. Because we're taking 5 to this germ pretty much every turn, I think. Opponent plays another Stoneforge. That sucks. That means they can get Batterskull, probably. Yeah. Opponent hits us for 5. Saga ticks up. They have 3 cards in hand. How do I want to do this? Play a swamp. I think I'd rather Thoughtseize their Batterskull than just make a dork. If I attack with all my boys, I'm pretty vulnerable to getting killed. So I'm going to have to block the germ here, I'm pretty sure. Let's lead on Thoughtseize. That means they're going to take at least 1 to this rack. Solitude, Flickerwisp, Batterskull. Alright, we got to take Batterskull. If they've Solitude one of our tokens, at least we gain some life. And hopefully they just don't draw mana for Flickerwisp. Go to combat. Do I attack with 1 or both? I think I just have to attack with 1. If they Solitude one of our boys, we can get a rack with this other Urza Saga, and then we're pretty much in business. We're going to go down to 5. If Kaldra connects with us, again, we're dead. Opponent goes down to 8. Opponent only attacked with the 1 boy. Okay. We draw Bantus. That can't get rid of the Kaldra, unfortunately. If we had another black mana, we'd be able to Bantus and then Smallpox away the Kaldra token, which could have been sexy. I wonder if it's still possible for me to do that somehow. Because I can still block the token while pressuring my opponent. Saga gets another rack. Our boys get a bit bigger. We go to combat. Attack with 1. Opponent chumps with a Stoneforge. That's okay. They're still not taking any rack damage, unfortunately. But I think we get to untap at least 1 more time. If I was my opponent, I think I'd be ticking up this Ether Vial so that if they draw land, they can Flicker Wisp, our Pithing Needle, and then Vial in Solitude, because that would be very, very powerful. Alright, unfortunately we have to lose another one of our dorks. Yup. Opponent plays Ghost Quarter. Plays Flicker Wisp. Yup. Flicker Wisp hits our Construct. Okay. That gets our opponent down to 2 cards in hand. Is there a way for me to kill them? Raven's Crime. I can get my opponent empty-handed, and I can deal 1 to them with Smallpox. They're just going to chump block this construct. Probably. So I think I have 7 damage on my opponent. And it's just not quite enough to get there. Maybe my opponent will block weird on this construct. Nope, they block normally. Raven's Crime you. And our last card's a Smallpox. We can deal 6 more to our opponent. Unfortunately, that's just game. Because our opponent can pop us for lethal with Cauldron still. GG's to our opponent. That was a lot of fun. And that was very close. I think maybe if I played it a little bit better, I would have been able to get there, but I'm not sure exactly what mistakes, if any, I made. Maybe playing Urza Saga earlier so I could needle Stoneforge is correct because Cauldron is such a beating. And maybe not having like... Maybe we should have like 1 Shadow Spear either main deck or sideboard so we can fetch that up and start having some lifelink with our construct tokens. But yeah, that was a lot of fun. I'll see you in the next one. Alright, final round of 8-rack. I've discovered that I'm not very good at playing this deck. We have 2 Smallpoxes that we can't cast because our mana is kind of awkward with our man land. We're playing against a Lurrus deck. Our Black Source pains us. I think we got a mulligan, especially since we don't have removal that we can actually cast right now. Alright, this seems fine. We will keep. I'm going to get rid of Thoughtseize and count on our opponent being a deck that plays Ragavan probably on turn 1 with so we can Fatal Push it. I'm going to take the stop off my opponent's upkeep. I had that from last game. Our opponent plays Spire of Industry, plays Zabaz. Oh god. So what is this? Probably a... So this looks like probably Hardened Scales. Let's play a Swamp, pass the turn. Probably going to Fatal Push here. Opponent plays Inkmoth Nexus, okay. Let's go ahead and go for Fatal Push on Zabaz. Opponent regenerates, that's fine. Means we're not getting attacked this turn at least. I haven't played against Scales in a while. I'm curious how this is going to go. Let's Inquisition our opponent. They have a lot of powerful cards already. They don't have anything for us to Thoughtseize, which kind of makes me want to cry. Alright, that sucks. Our opponent has a very land-heavy hand, which means it's going to be hard for us to clear their hand out. This is not what I thought I signed up for when I saw Lurrus. I wonder if they're not actually playing... And of course they draw the Ravager off the top. Alright, we're pretty close to dead already. Especially since we can't protect ourselves from Inkmoth with Liliana. We draw Raven's Crime. That's not really going to do anything for us. Let's Lily Edict, so we're at least interacting with our opponent in some way. They're probably just going to pop Zabez and put it on either Arcbound Ravager or Inkmoth Nexus. I think what I've discovered is either A, and my most likely suspicion is I'm just bad at playing 8-rack decks, or B, which is also fairly likely if I'm being honest, but I'm sure people can still pilot it to success, is 8-rack decks are not very well positioned with post-MH2. Yeah, opponent's going to pop. They pop their Inkmoth, interesting. Oh, because they have the second one in their hand, I guess that makes sense. The power level of the format might just be too high for straight up 8-rack to be a decent contender. I would have thought our opponent would have played the other Inkmoth that we saw. It's a little curious. Opponent attacks us and attacks Liliana, that's fine. We draw Shrieking Affliction. Liliana can only sort of remove something because Modular is just going to put the token, I mean, I'm going to go for it again. Removing one of these at least means that Steel Overseer has less power come out of it each turn, so I guess that's fine. And Lily might also eat another attack from our opponent, which would be nice. Opponent breaks Ravager. I didn't really expect that one. And I guess Sabbath has the Hardened Scales ability for Modular specifically. Opponent plays a Welding Jar. Makes me a bit more sad than I already was. They can kill us with Infect, and, well, apparently they're just going to go for damage. They can kill us with regular damage next turn, too. We can pressure them a little bit with the Rack and Shrieking Affliction, but it's not going to be significant enough. I'll Thoughtseize them, maybe get a bit of extra information, and then just concede. Spire of Industry, we concede. Okay. Well, game one seems like it's going to be pretty rough with that matchup anyway because of Welding Jars. So let's bring in Needle, Bontus, and Break the Ices, and Fatal Push. Break the Ice can... They're probably playing Urza Saga, Break the Ice can kill that. They're definitely playing Inkmoth, Break the Ice can kill that, and Break the Ice can also get rid of Spire of Industry because it can produce colorless. So that seems pretty good. Wrenchmind seems absolutely horrible, so we're going to cut all of those. Nile Spellbomb seems okay enough since they have Luris, so I'll keep it. I think. Well, actually, Voidwalker might be better, because Voidwalker stops modular triggers. Let's bring in 2 Voidwalkers. I think we're just going to pivot like heavily away from what we were planning on doing. Get rid of 2 Shrieking Afflictions. Get rid of Nile Spellbomb, Thoughtseize, Ditch a Raven's Crime. We still need to shave 2 cards. Liliana's probably a bit too slow. Alright. We'll try it like that. And hope for the best. We will take the play. Alright, cross your fingers for me. We need to get both of these sideboard games. I really want the play points, the half the play points back. Alright. Break the Ice seems good. Smallpox seems good. We have a lot of mana disruption, which might be a decent way for us to win this. We have an Urza Saga, which is one of our better cards, and we have an Inquisition for turn 1. This hand seems great. I will keep. So if they play land Dork on turn 1, I'll probably just Smallpox both of them away. If they don't do that, I'll probably break the ice on whatever land they play. Let's Inquisition you. Hardened Scales, Arcbound Ravager, Ancient Stirrings, Ancient Stirrings. Do I just get Scales while I can? Or do I get rid of Arcbound Ravager since it's their only creature? They don't have a lot of... I think I just get rid of Scales since I can. Because them having that effect is way faster of a kill condition than if they don't. And if they draw a 1-mana Dork, I'd rather them play that on turn 1 than anything else. Our opponent fires off an Ancient Stirrings. Gets a second Arcbound Ravager. We don't have anything to break the ice with. Let's play Swamp. I don't think I want a Voidwalker here. Well, actually I will Voidwalker here because I can just play Lily next turn and Edict them if they play a creature. I can leave Smallpox for later, while progressing my game plan a little bit. I don't want to just lay back and not do anything. Opponent plays a land. I assume they're going to play a Ravager. We'll see. I'm probably going to sack a Urza Saga Dork to Smallpox later anyway, so that I still have the Leyline of the Void effect. Our opponent has not played something I can break the ice on, which is very sad. Opponent plays a Hardened Scales, because of course they still have one. They didn't play a Dork, that makes me feel a bit more justified in playing Voidwalker. And now I could Ancient Stirrings with my Voidwalker if I wanted. Isn't that nifty? Alright, so let's get rid of the other Ancient Stirrings. This is confusing. Alright, they have Arcbound Ravager, Hangerback Walker, Hangerback Walker. They played a land. Alright, we drew another Smallpox. That's not really what we wanted. We'll play Saga. Play Lily. I'm going to keep the Break the Ice because I think getting rid of Inkmoth Nexus is important enough that we want to leave that as an option. Get rid of a Smallpox, get our opponent to discard a card. Yeah, Douthie Voidwalker stops Modulars from triggering and also stops Hangerback Walker from triggering, so that's very nice. Our opponent discarded a Plains. That's fine. Get jiggy with Voidwalker. Pass the turn. Let's see what happens this turn. I'm probably just going to leave up my mana. Okay, opponent plays Inkmoth Nexus. Opponent plays Arcbound Ravager. Both of those things are fine. So I'm going to Edict... Well, I'm going to break the ice on Inkmoth, and then I'm going to Edict the Rat. Ooh, I drew Fatal Push. Huh. So I'm probably not making a Saga token here, is what this means. Let's... Edict you. If they crew up Inkmoth Nexus in response, I can Fatal Push it or Arcbound Ravager, it doesn't really matter. Our opponent decided to leave their Inkmoth in play. I'm fine with that. Alright, opponent concedes. Okay, it's because they realized that Voidwalkers stopped their thing from happening. I'm fine with that. Let's see. I think I want to keep the Break the Ices. I think maybe I go down on Rack and add in another Lily. Lily still seems kind of slow, but if we have... But it's a good way to keep board control like that. Pivoting away from the Rack plan and more to a removal-centric plan seems correct. Because they're so much faster than us if we don't interact very heavily. Liliana, Inquisition, bunch of lands. I think I have to pitch this, especially since our opponent's on the play. I want to have a Voidwalker and I want to have some decent early game removal, so let's mulligan. We have infinite Thoughtseize effects, and we have a Liliana. I think I have to mulligan again. Alright. Definitely keeping both the lands. I think I keep the Break the Ice. I think I keep Inquisition. I think I'm pitching Raven's Crime, and then I'm keeping either Pithing Needle or Thoughtseize. I'll probably keep both the discard effects and get rid of Needle Raven's Crime. I think that sounds right. Hopefully they play a colorless land early so I can blow it up. Luckily our opponent is spending turn 1 with an Ancient Stirring, so I'm going to be able to Inquisition and take something before they develop a board. Because this hand is so removal light, I think I have to favor disrupting their creatures rather than getting like Hardened Scales here. Draw Liliana, okay. Inquisition you. Ozolith, Steel Overseer, Arcbound Ravager, Inkmoth Nexus, Inkmoth Nexus. That's spooky. Okay. Do I take Ravager or Steel Overseer? They're probably going to play an Inkmoth Nexus next turn, which is nice at least. I can Break the Ice on Inkmoth Nexus, and then the turn after that I can what? I think I take Ravager here since it's the most explosive thing with the Ozolith. But it's very interesting. Opponent plays Nexus, that's decent for us. It means we can blow that up. They can play another Nexus and they can put a counter on both their creatures, but they can't do anything else next turn, most likely. I guess they could play Ozolith too. We draw Smallpox. We don't have enough extra mana to do that yet, although it would be nice. I think I need to blow up their Nexus here and then maybe Smallpox next turn, or maybe play Liliana, depending. Pass the turn. Opponent plays another Nexus, that's fine. Our Urborg is giving our opponent black fixing for... black fixing for their Lurrus, unfortunately. We draw a Swamp. Do I want a Smallpox or do I want a Liliana? I think I want a Liliana since it's a bit more of a mana efficient thing to do. Well, so I Liliana, I Edict. Do they keep Inkmoth or Steel Overseer? If they keep Inkmoth, Smallpox isn't as good, but if they keep Steel Overseer... Huh. I think I want a Smallpox here. Keep them low on lands. Definitely getting Steel Overseer and possibly getting another land. They have to choose if they want their green fixing or an Inkmoth Nexus. Opponent crews up Inkmoth. They're going to activate Steel Overseer. I'm not sure if they're going to sacrifice Inkmoth or Steel Overseer. I assume they're going to sacrifice Steel Overseer because I don't think they want both their lands to be gone. Would I rather have Liliana or Thoughtseize? What am I hoping to draw? I think I pitch Liliana because I know I can Thoughtseize this turn and possibly get some action out of their hand that they need. Opponent discards a land, sacrifices a dork, we sacrifice our Urborg, get our opponent off of Laris mana. Ozolith triggers, that's fine. We Thoughtseize our opponent. Hopefully they have a spell in hand. They have a Razorverge Thicket, that's kind of a pain in the ass. Now I wish I kept Liliana, but oh well. Alright, our opponent has a medium-sized Inkmoth Nexus that they can hit us with. And they can protect it with Welding Jar for now. If we draw Break the Ice, and they attack us with Inkmoth Nexus this turn, they can't protect it. Which is nice at least. Our opponent does not attack us. Okay. Them giving us time is also okay in my book. We draw Urza's Saga. I don't know why I did that. There we go. Urza's Saga. So Saga is going to be able to get Needle on Inkmoth Nexus, which is also a decent clock on what our opponent's doing. As long as they can't kill us with Infect before then, we shouldn't be taking any more Infect over the course of the game, and if they move a counter onto Inkmoth Nexus, then we're in happy fun time land. Compared to... Since I'm so used to playing Urza Saga in Affinity, compared to that, the Construct tokens are just so sad looking. Being like 1/1s and 2/2s most of the time with this deck. Alright, so opponent is going in on the Infect plan, since they can animate during our turn and protect with Welding Jar now. But they only have a couple turns to try to kill us. They get 3 Infect this turn, they're going to be able to attack again next turn, and then hopefully Zabas might actually be able to, depending on what they draw next turn, Zabas might be able to get them there. We draw Bloodchief's Thirst. Okay. I'm not going to Bloodchief's Thirst Zabas here, I don't think. Because our opponent doesn't have enough mana to attack with Inkmoth Nexus and also play Arcbound Ravager, so we're not particularly scared about that. So I think I'd rather just have a Dork and worry about Bloodchief's Thirst later. We're at 17 life, so I'm not scared of dying to regular swingers yet. Opponent can hit us for 3 Infect and 1 regular. Zabas kills itself. Okay. Inkmoth Nexus grows to 5 power. They have 1 unknown card in hand. We're going to get hit for more Infect. We're going to needle the shit out of Inkmoth Nexus. Opponent has 1 card in hand, so a rack would actually be decent if we drew one. but we don't have enough mana to do both those things currently. Make another boy. Get a needle. Hit Inkmoth Nexus. Play a swamp. Start attacking. So our opponent has a Welding Jar still, which means Bloodchief's Thirst doesn't completely kill something, but we're likely to be able to block also. Opponent plays Esper Sentinel, okay. Opponent plays Arcbound Worker, okay. They have no cards in hand. We drew Smallpox. I don't think we're going to be casting that anytime soon. Let's blow up Esper Sentinel. Not letting our opponent draw a card doesn't seem wise. Go to combat. They didn't Welding Jar, which is kind of interesting. Attack for 6. I'm just going to try to close out this game as quickly as possible. I think giving them extra draws just gives them more inevitability, especially since they can put Lurrus into their hand. Opponent's at 9. Opponent plays a land. Are they going to put Lurrus into hand this turn? Or did they forget that they have Lurrus? They forgot that they have Lurrus. Okay. Or they're playing around discard, I guess, but it's a bit... I think that's a bit much to be playing around it that hard. Attack, attack. Opponent blocks. Are you going to Welding Jar? Opponent does not Welding Jar. Okay. I'm going to leave Urborg in my hand, so our opponent still has to tap at least one Spire of Industry for mana. That pains them if they want to play Lurrus. Alright, we got lethal on our opponent if they don't draw a creature here. Opponent gets Zabez, which does block again for our opponent, unfortunately. Yeah, I don't know why they didn't Welding Jar Arcbound Worker, because if they didn't draw exactly a creature, they would have been in danger. We draw Inquisition. That doesn't do anything. We attack for lethal. Yep. Still not Welding Jarring. Interesting. Pass the turn. Opponent's still at 3. Opponent needs to draw a creature and also have a way to gain life or kill one of our creatures. Okay, cool. We got there with a 2-3 at the end, which isn't a winning record, but like I said, I tried to play this a couple times, and I'm not very good at playing 8-rack, but we won against Bogles, which, fairly easy matchup. We should probably be able to win that most of the time. We won against Hardened Scales, which I'm pretty satisfied with. I think, realistically, the Hatebears deck is pretty winnable too. We were able to get one of those, and I think the Lurrus Midrange deck is also pretty winnable from what we saw. I'm pretty satisfied with this deck. I'd like to play it some more. It's a lot of fun. Definitely not the best at taking advantage of the Urza Saga tokens. Shrieking Affliction feels a little weird in the deck now since it's an enchantment and it doesn't really fit in with the like artifact sub-theme. But yeah, the deck's pretty sweet. Wrenchmind I might think about cutting, just because there's so many decks playing artifacts right now. It was really sweet in the ones that either happened to not have some of their artifacts in their hand or weren't playing artifacts. And it's actually card advantage, which this deck kind of struggles to find pretty often, other than like Urza Saga, because there's so many 1-for-1s and all these Thoughtseizes. I was pretty satisfied with the sideboard too. I think when I play black decks in the future, I'm going to lean towards playing Break the Ice more often, because having a sinkhole for a lot of the most important lands in the format was very useful. Let me know what you think, and I'll see you in the next one.
Hey everyone, Shoe Nice again. Well, basically, go subscribe to Tezzey's YouTube channel. And for those who made it to the end of the video, thank you.